Star Citizen Mining. It's one of the best developed game activities, and since its inception has continued to grow and get regular updates. So I wanted to go over some interesting strategies that have emerged between the mining heads, various types of mining modules, and some future mining gadgets that so far haven't been well received, but I think have some potential. Since the 3.15 wipe, I've been getting back into mining and really checking out the culmination of changes and additions they've made over the last few game updates. After mining was first introduced, the next significant change was the introduction of the mining heads. I played around with those quite a bit and liked the way the different ones affected the different characteristics of the rocks. Some lowered the resistance, some lowered the stability, some lowered one statistic while raising another. But in the end, there wasn't a tremendous amount of choice to be made. Back then, the Helix mining head was clearly the best choice. And even though it was fun to play around with the other cheaper ones like the Hofstede, you really only needed a Helix. Even if you had a mole, there was really no other upgrade choice than to equip the ship with 3 Helix heads. Now you have some choices, and there's some variety in strategies. But before I go any farther, I realize the game is in alpha, and a lot of changes and game balances are to come. And the types of rocks, sizes, resistances, and other statistics are likely to change. So I'm going to talk about the future as well as my own experiences right now. So let me talk about my current favorite setup. I've gone with the historically trustworthy Helix, and at minimum the consumable Brant mining module, with a torpid module for an extra measure, in case I need a little more resistance reduction. The Helix has the second highest power output of all the lasers, and it's there to crack those large or highly resistant rocks, as well as some other great statistics. It improves the stability of the rock, lowers its resistance, increases the charge rate, and also has a nice optimal distance to the rock, which means you can get a little farther away for safer mining. This setup has been great and creates one of the easier mining setups, in my opinion. Once you get past the original cost of the Helix, which is significant, it's one of the lower costs to operate. I've been able to mine almost everything with the Helix and Brant, and I say almost because I'll talk about that in a second. As far as setups, on a very opposite end of the spectrum is a rather odd combination of the Lancet Head in combination with 3 other modules. So the Lancet at first glance has some amazing stats, all on its own. It has tremendous stability reduction, an amazing resistance reduction, and greatly increases the charge window. So this laser looks like it's much better than the Helix, and in many ways, it is.
I am aware of that, Doctor.
Its main drawback is its lower power output, which means you'll be unlikely to crack most rocks using it all on its own. And CIG even markets this laser as a support laser, where its statistics can assist a second laser, like for a mole. But with the right modules, this laser can be a powerhouse for solo mining. Here's how it can work. You apply power to the rock, and then use the surge module, which will deliver a burst of power that immediately fills part of the current charge window by 40%. Because it is an instant burst, you need to gauge when to hit it so the mining power will jump up and land in the green zone for fracturing. Now, that surge is only instant, so the power will start to fall off and take you out of that green zone if you don't act quickly. Right on the heels of the surge, you can hit the optimal module, which will increase the green fracture window by 75% and give you a little extra time and leeway for fracturing. But you'll still need a little assistance as that power can fall off rather quickly. The final kick is to use the Stampede module. It dramatically increases the rate at which the fracturing will occur. So even if you only have a few seconds before the power falls off from the innately weak Lancet laser, that Stampede module will usually complete the fracture in time. This second method is effective and in some ways might even be superior to my Helix setup. But it's definitely not the easiest or least expensive. It might just be my own personal preference, but I found trying to get the timing just right on executing each of the modules to be pretty tricky. And it didn't take a whole lot for me to have to abandon the whole sequence and have to start over again to avoid exploding the rock. Even with everything perfect, I was still having to use 3 consumable modules. And even though cost-wise it's not a tremendous layout, there's something about being almost required to use 3 consumables every time I break a new rock that doesn't feel good to me. The good news is that once the rock is initially broken, the Lancet by itself should have sufficient power to break up the smaller pieces. There might be some exceptions you'll run across there size-wise, but even quantainium rock can probably be handled with the Lancet alone due to its innately high stability and resistance reduction. In a way, my Helix setup is kind of the opposite. The Helix alone can break almost any rock the first time by itself, at least most of the time. But if you're mining a very unstable rock like quantainium, then you're probably going to have to use the Brandt module for extra stability most of the time on the small pieces. It's kind of the opposite of the Lancet, where it can usually crack all the small pieces by itself. There's some exceptions to all these situations and needing a little extra module assistance for the Lancet or Helix. But I thought CIG having these rather two extremes of strategy and mining component setup was really fascinating.
Fascinating.
It shows they're trying to break a common game problem, where there winds up being one clear winner in terms of equipment or approach, and everyone gravitates to that one setup. Here, even though some balancing may still be needed, there's multiple strategies that can match different mining styles or situations, and it didn't really stop with just the mining heads and consumables. I started to see some variation coming in with the passive modules and mining gadgets as well. The passive modules don't get used up, and brings in some interesting options. For a while, I ran a passive filter for inerts, and used the best one I could find for a 20% inert reduction. I thought it would be good to help increase my yield with each mining run, and it did, but after a while I realized that I generally only extract the high content rocks anyway, generally avoiding a lot of the inerted material. So for me, I don't think I really got my money's worth out of it. However, for a mole, I can see equipping one dedicated laser with 3 of them, which should give a 60% inert reduction, and then let that laser and operator be more dedicated to the extraction activity. It could be similar to the Prospector, where the mining is largely focused on high content rocks anyway, but that setup surfaces 2 gameplay options. One is that the mole team might start making decisions to take some rocks with more inerts, knowing they'll be discarded, and could reduce the overall search and fracture time that they spend. And 2, which is much more subtle, it could create more of an identified role on a multi-crew ship. I find this second aspect to be the more attractive of the two. I think anytime a player has a distinct and important role on a multi-crew ship, it adds some spice and interest to the game. I know CIG is going to be evolving the idea of dedicated roles a lot more, and I'm looking well down the road, but I could definitely see myself logging into, let's say, a Redeemer bed as a drone operator, and working a shift for a couple hours as the ship patrols the systems, tearing apart wrecks. Indirectly, the right combination of passive and consumable modules on certain mining heads could create these kinds of focused roles, which is cool. Even the mining gadgets could evoke some of this, and also creates some strategies for the solo player. The mining gadgets didn't get well received at all from the community, but I already found myself in a situation where it would have been really useful. The big difference to me between the modules and the gadgets is that the gadgets can be used on demand, and the modules have to be pre-applied at a station while the ship is in the hangar. Maybe all that will change, but if they stay with the current way they've got that applied, then it really separates the gadgets from the modules. In my situation, I hadn't equipped an appropriate consumable or passive module that would give me more resistance reduction or laser power. And I found a great quantainium asteroid with high levels of quantainium. But after 20 minutes of lasering, it wasn't clear I was going to be able to break it. If I'd been carrying one of the gadgets, it would have made the difference between bringing in a big score versus having to leave it behind. It was the exact scenario CIG described, and it was the situation I was in. Like I said, I know they were seen by many of the community as just another module, and we've already got consumables and passive ones. But the on-demand nature is an important discriminator, and could even lead to more of the multi-crew dedicated role function I described. CIG described the mining gadgets for a solo application. But imagine in a larger scale operation where one person is dedicated to placing gadgets on designated rocks in a boulder cluster, so the mining laser operators can stay in position and immediately start mining. The gadget placer wouldn't even need to be someone associated with the mining ship. It could be the transporter person waiting for the mining bags to fill, or someone who is operating as a scout in a small ship. It opens up some gameplay possibilities. As far as the mining heads and modules, there's likely some other combinations beyond the Helix and Lancet setup, like using the impact laser that has the highest power output and combining it with the Brandt for stabilization, or maybe a passive module like the Vox for stabilization, and an optimum consumable to give a bigger fracture window, or maybe the use of gadgets along with that impact laser. There's a lot of possibilities, which is really why I'm liking all the different modules and gadgets.
Our choices determine which outcomes will follow.
It offers a variety of strategies and approaches to suit different styles of mining, solo and multi-crew approaches, and likely as CIG evolves and further differentiates the actual mineable rocks, probably becomes an essential part of how we equip ourselves and our ship for mining. Thanks for watching, and I'll be talking to you later.